they'll sell out the Uptown easily or the Midland. I remember when her first record came out, and she was sort of, there was a lot of pushback because she was raised in the Northeast and from Connecticut, I guess, and went to college, and then she just sort of adapted this Dust Bowl, appearance and old-timey music, and was a really good songwriter. But some people thought she was like appropriating stuff, blah, blah, blah. This is a good record, and she kept putting out records, and they started catching on. She was on the Oh Brother soundtrack.
Yes.
with Emmylou and Alison Krauss. That really propelled her. And then he has had his own career, but has been attached to her. I first saw her at the old Grand Emporium, so that was like right after the first record came out, which must have been in the late 90s. And they were fantastic. And I was like, I don't care where they're from. This is good. And he's a really gifted guitar player, really amiable, funny on stage, a little goofy. So, yeah, I mean, see them any chance you can. I saw him. I think it was his band, but she was part of the band, It was the Dave Rawlings band, and John Paul Jones was there. It was fantastic. I think John Paul Jones might have played banjo or something at one point. So it's really good stuff. They're not going to surprise you too much with what they do because they stay in their lane, but it's really good, thoughtful songwriting and great musicianship.
And their new album, Woodland, comes out on August 23rd. So if you've been a fan or this sounds like it's down your lane, then maybe you'll be interested in that. I think still trying to find a lane in life and in performing is Elle King, and she's on a tour of interviews, and I don't know if she's got a record out or she's just touring and deciding she has some things to say. And she's trying to also, make up for some shabby performances at the Grand Ole Opry at a tribute to Dolly Parton. She was drunk and forgot the words. I saw her in the last couple of years, and she wasn't very good at all. She was vaping on stage, and she was pretty loaded in that environment, too. Now, thankfully, I saw the Red Clay Strays open for her, and they were quite good. But she's got a lot to say about her famous father, Rob Schneider, who now is becoming more maybe infamous for his political views and homophobia, etc. So she's out there talking, and Will just said she's been through some terrible times, and you just have to hope that the future lies ahead for somebody who's really kind of a great sassy performer at her best.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of another chapter in an ongoing book, which is, and it's the same with athletes. With mental health, it's something you have to take care of. And if they start to get away from you, it's going to affect your performances. And we see that with some athletes, but also when you're in the business she's in, things fluctuate and turn so fast and so quickly, and sometimes unexpectedly. There's a lot to endure. There's a lot to respond to, and I'm sure I read a little bit about her relationship. She never really had much one with her dad, and growing up, but then they kind of reconnected, and then yes, he just went completely the opposite way. So a lot of us have had to deal with that in some way over the last 5 or 6 or 7 years. Mm-hmm. Someone you care about, and all of a sudden it's like, oh well, we have some differences. So I'm sure dealing with that just awakened something. So you can see why she was in a place where she was being a little reckless, and it got out of hand, and she's trying to fix it.
She is trying to fix it. I wish her luck. She does seem to be a person who has said, her father sent her to fat camp when she was young, and it's all kinds of things that have been part of her past. Yeah, but we bought tickets to it for a reason. My wife was a fan. Now she's probably no longer a fan. She'll have to regain her fanhood. But anyway, let's hope that happens in her life and things look bright coming ahead. Well, that's not the case for a documentary we're going to explore when we come back and look at some of the good and bad of veteran performers as well, a few birthdays, and a little bit more. It's all part of Arts and Lifestyle Wednesday, presented by Cinematic Visions, and Danny and Tim's music scene for this time around.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this. We're here at the 23rd Street Brewery with Matt Llewellyn. And Matt, basketball's over, football's still a few months away, but there's always fun to be had at the 23rd Street Brewery.
Absolutely. We've always got something going on here. The games are always going on. It's a great place to come enjoy everything out on the patio. Beautiful scenery out there. Great beer. I've got a great brewer, great food. It's always fun here at the brewery.
And the atmosphere is great and friendly and warm, too.
We always want to make sure you're a lot happier when you leave than you were when you came in.
Always fun here at the 23rd Street Brewery at 23rd and Castle. Make sure to come by when you're in Lawrence.
It's always great to get an update from Dr. Brad Woodall from Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. 8 locations all around Kansas City, including the newest one in Raytown.
We are very excited to join the Raytown community. We just took over for Dr. David Frey, who retired and has then shared all of his patients with us to take great care of.
They do it all year round, and that means in the fall as well, when people get back to raking leaves and participating in fall sports, all those kinds of things, right?
Back to school means back for fun. Full backpack, we can help as your chiropractor. If you're starting fall sports, we want to make sure you have that physical, and we want to make sure you're in great shape. And if injuries happen, we've got your back.
And you've got it all around Kansas City at 8 different locations for Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. Visit asfca.com/Danny. That's asfca.com/Danny.
If you'd like to join these and other fine sponsors and market your business to Kansas City's #1 variety podcast, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to working with you.
Welcome back, and we always try on Danny and Tim's music scene with Timothy Finn to give you some heads up on some documentaries musically that we have seen, and I've been a little spare in that regard. We've been watching a ton of old movies over the last couple of weeks, and none of them have been documentaries, but you've seen a documentary that came out a couple of years ago that is about a rather, probably to most people, obscure musician who had a really interesting, torturous, and life that could have been in a different direction, but a very talented performer, and certainly a great subject for a documentary.
Yeah, I think people have been trying to make this documentary for a long time. She was born in like the late 30s in a small town in Texas.
And this is Karen Dalton.
Karen Dalton, yeah. And she had a daughter when she was very young, 16 or something, and got married and then divorced and had another kid. And then she very abruptly just said she left her children with her husband and got divorced and moved to New York because she wanted to do music. And, that eventually she tried to rectify that. She felt bad about it. But she was, she ended up in the Greenwich Village folk scene with Dylan and people like that who admired her for her voice. She didn't write songs. She covered songs. But I think Dylan compared her to like Billie Holiday once. Like she has that kind of expressive voice. Her phrasing's a little weird. It's kind of hard to catch up with it. But man, when she gets into a song and really starts feeling it, it's really provocative and emotional. So the record industry didn't really know what to do with her because she's so different. And some of the songs she had some songs written for her that became popular, but mostly after she died in 1993. She was 55 and died of AIDS. She had a addiction problem, substance abuse problem with alcohol and not drugs and hard drugs. So she had a chance to, at one point, to become big. She put out a record that was really well produced, and someone knew what they were doing, what to do with their voice. The record got some traction, and for some reason, she was signed up to be an opener for Santana, which was when he was just, they were blowing up and super. We know what their music is like and their concerts are like. And she came out and everyone was like, "What is this? Boo!" Right. So she never really survived that moment. She got dropped, and after that, she just sort of went away. And she reconnected with her daughter. But it's a tragic tale. But she has, if you know artists like Nick Cave, or there's Devendra Banhart and Joanna Newsom, and she has. Billie Eilish has mentioned her. It's her style, her voice, and someone who was eminent at something but could never really find a place. So, I knew the ending going in, right. But it was really, it was good to to fill in the blanks. And her daughter was involved, and they had access to a lot of stuff through her daughter. Was trying to keep her mother's memory alive, and was happy with this because others had tried to do a doc on her, and it just never worked out.
The documentary is In My Own Time about Karen Dalton, and I am definitely going to seek that one out. And you mentioned she has a beautiful voice, if not different, and certainly a great voice, and one of the premier American rock bands of all time, really. Awerosmith is going to pack it in because Steven Tyler can't sing anymore, and I guess to their credit, they probably are all uber rich and can do whatever they want. And they're in their 70s. I think they've decided that we're not going to go out and hire somebody to be Steven Tyler. They've been through so much, and he tried to rehab his voice and could not do so. Their last show that they ever did ended up being last fall on Long Island, and actually my sister, who was maybe the biggest Aerosmith fan ever, saw them 20 plus times when she was younger, and she drove with a good friend of hers to Long Island from Framingham, Massachusetts to see this show. And ironically enough, she was at the last show that Aerosmith will ever do. Mm-hmm. You know, it does say, I was talking about about this with somebody the other day. It is kind of amazing because they've been a lot more solo performers and everything, that I'm an Aerosmith fan, but the fact that Aerosmith really absolutely has to be mentioned as one of the greatest American rock bands ever kind of says a lot about American rock bands, to be honest with you. There just aren't that many great ones through the years that rank with maybe the iconic British ones. Anyway, Aerosmith had their time, place, Tortures, and their early stuff is out of this world good to me. So I don't think sad to see them go, but you don't want to see somebody who has to reach for high notes and do everything else just not have it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the thing about their story is it's like the first movie and then the sequel, because they changed. You know, Linda Perry was writing songs, and they went to being a top 40 band, which I like some of those songs, but it's not what I remember the first time I heard them in high school. They were, and I know several or more guys who were in rock bands and heavy rock bands, and like, oh yeah, they're to me, they're at their best, the Stones of American music.
Right.
And I can see that for sure. And I saw them open for Petty, I'm pretty sure, once. I mean, it's crazy. We'll talk about that again later, but yeah, they, speaking of great American rock bands, I put the Heartbreakers up there.
Yes, absolutely. No question about that.
And I think I would put Wilco in there now, just because they've been around so long, and the band itself is amazing. So, but I mean, that's a good question, because, and where do you put the band? Because most of them are Canadian, or some of them are. So yeah, that's an interesting question, but for their early output, they definitely deserve to be enshrined somewhere.
If you want a 9-minute jam you've never heard, go back to their first album. There's a song called One Way Street, which is my favorite Aerosmith song, and it's a very cool song with harmonica, blues, and Steve Tyler at his absolute wild best. So anyway, I can highly recommend that. You touched on it and then provide a good segue for right now. Steve Winwood is touring with the Doobie Brothers. The Doobies are obviously the lead of that. I saw Michael McDonald once at the Kansas Speedway. They probably flew him in there for a one-off thing. I've never really had much of a desire to see the Doobie Brothers, but now I wish I would go to this show, because I know the Doobie Brothers would be reliable and they would be good, even though I don't really like their catalog that much. But Steve Winwood is 78 years old now, and we watched some videos last night from this tour, and he's still great, and he can play anything. People know him as a Hammond B3 organ guy mostly and stuff like that, but he's a fabulous guitarist. You mentioned Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, never afraid to let the greatest people open for them, and we saw the same show at T-Mobile Center, then Sprint Center, and Steve Winwood opened. And I hadn't heard, Steve Winwood had done his 90s stuff, which was late 80s, early 90s stuff, which were huge hits. And they're okay, but it's not really real Steve Winwood. It's sort of like Awerosmith, kind of. It's top 40, and I'm sure his banker is happy, and he has a